B'Shus Maradasra, we're continuing our Shir Dishu B'Halacha. So, like usual, we're going to start with Pirkei Avos. We're holding in Perek Rishon. We're up to Mishnah Daled. Yosi ben Yoyezer ish Tzreida. Yosi ben Yoyezer from Tzreida. The Yosi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim kiblu mehem. They learned the Torah from Antigonus ish Seichai, who got it from Shimon HaTzadik. Yosi ben Yoyezer ish Tzreida Omer. Yosi ben Yoyezer from Tzreida was wont to say, Yehi beisacha beis vad l'chachamim. Your house should be a gathering place for chachamim. Now, I found interesting the Pirush HaRambam, the way the Rambam learns this, that your house should be a meeting place for chachamim. The lashon of the Rambam is, Roitza loymar, the Tana means to say, Shetasim beischa muchan lehiskabetz hachachamim tamid. Your house should be a place that's always prepared when the Chachamim need to have a meeting, and they need to have a place to have their meeting. It should always be Ad shekishayomer adam l'chaveroi ana eschaberimcha. When one Talmid Chacham will say to the other one, we have to have a meeting, where should we meet? Ana ivayidimcha yom alai, he'll say to him, bebeis ploini, we should go to his house. Now, that means that this person's home becomes the known address for Talmidei Chachamim need to get together somewhere. It's by that house. Now, this has a tremendous effect on a house. Forget the person himself. It has a tremendous effect on a home. If somebody's home becomes a place where it's very common for Talmidei Chachamim to be there, right? So then, no matter what madrega the person himself is on, even if he's on a much lower madrega, suddenly he finds himself saying, I can't bring that into my house. I mean, it's pasnished. The Rav is going to come. The Rav is going to come to my house, and he's going to find a newspaper like that on the table. He's going to come to the house. He's going to find a book like that in the living room. I can't do that. So suddenly the whole aura of the home changes, and this is a very potent thing. It's like when I remember I would say shir in Edison when I lived there. So I had one shir that I said that rotated in different people's houses. One Tuesday night it was one person's house, next Tuesday it was somebody else's house. So there was one home, very, very wonderful people, and the father asked me about his son, how he could inspire his son a little bit more to learning. So I told him, I said, he was a man of means. I said, you need to go out and you need to buy a shas and you need to buy a Shulchan Aruch and a Mikras Gedolos, a set of Chumashim and a set of Mishnayos and 2 Sfarim Shranken. And that wall right over there, you got to put up 2 Sfarim Shranken and you got to fill them up with Sfarim. I said, we come into the house and what do we see when we come into the house? We don't see any Sfarim. We don't see any Torah. We see sports memorabilia. So if that's the aura of the home, that is absorbed by the people in the home. If the son will see that you have a shas and you have Shulchan Aruch, even though you don't even know how to use it, his father did not know how to learn, but this is what you're machshiv, and this is what you want to have. You have a break front over there with silver, and over here you have Sfarim Shranken with Sfarim, so that makes a statement of what you're machshiv. Another fellow opened up his house on Friday nights for a Friday night shir during this season, during the winter. Every Friday night, about an hour after the Suda, he had in his house a shir on the Parsha and Cholent. And I used to open the program for him every year. I said the first year and the last year for him every season. And we had 25, 30 people coming out. It became a social event also. 25, 30 people coming out, but it also changed his home. It changed his home. His home became a shtickle of Medrash. And I watched as the years, a few years, watched as the years went by. Another Svarim shrank, more Svarim, more, and I remember you would meet him in the street. It's an interesting thing. This past week, Rabbi so-and-so said this year, and he spoke about this, and he spoke about that. Now suddenly speaking and learning. So this here, is a tremendous thing. It has the potential for changing your whole home. It has the potential for changing you. And it doesn't only have to be, somebody says, not everybody has the opportunity to make his home a beis vad l'chachamim. Especially nowadays, they don't even need your home. Nowadays, we have bat midrashim or bat knesiyos, there's a mismarriage on every corner, so they don't need. But it could be a beis vad l'chachamim in other ways too. The point is, make the home a Torah home. Make a parlor meeting for a yeshiva in your house. Somebody needs. There's one guy I know who happens to be Edison is a hospital town also because of Robert Wood Johnson. So there's lots of Lakewood babies born in Edison Highland Park. One day during the week, one Monday in the Aguda at the 7:20 Shachris Minyan, we named 4 girls. We had one Aliyah, and it was a Kayin, a Levi, and a Yisrael. We had a Kayin that had a girl, then we had a Levi that had twin girls, and then we had a Yisrael that had a girl. I never saw anything like it in my life. So he named 4 girls by the 7:20 Minyan. So this fellow in town, what happens when a couple comes in on Thursday, not even Thursday, Friday morning, a couple comes in, and they have a baby and they have a boy. Where's the Shalom Zachar? So this fellow in town has made easily 100 Shalom Zachars in his house. His house is the address. You need a Shalom Zachar, it's late Friday, you need a Shalom Zachar, you call up Moshe Foy. I'm sure he won't mind me saying it. You call up fellows who know Herbie, it's Herbie's nephew. You need a Shalom Zachar, call Moshe. Moshe Foy will make you a Shalom Zachar. So there's many ways to open up your house to Torah and make your home a Torah home. Okay, now we go into halacha. Very interesting stuff today. Well, it's interesting stuff every day, but this is somewhat famous. So we're on the bottom of Kuf Pei Dalid Amid Beis. We're holding in Siman Shin Lamed Ches Siv Gimel. Zug hamekashkesh l'sha'os, a clock that is made to chime on the hour. Asui al yedei mishkalos, that operates by weights. Now, I have to admit, I wish I would have had more time to research this. Maybe there's somebody here who can help me. Is there anybody here who knows how a grandfather clock operates? I mean a real grandfather clock, not the fake ones. Those things that are in the front, the pendulums, that is part of the operating mechanism of the clock, is it not? It is, right? So I believe that this is precisely what the Machaber is referring to here. He means a clock where the mechanism works because there are weights that swing on pendulums, and as long as those weights are swinging on the pendulums, what?
The weights don't swing. The pendulum is what's moving, keeping the time.
Right.
The weight is what actually is keeping the perpetual.
Right, the perpetual motion. So I was saying, as long as that is swinging, that's what's making the gears of the clock and the mechanism turn. So that's what the Machaber is talking about here. A zug hamekashkesh l'sharis asay al yedei mishkalos. A clock that is made to chime, hamekashkesh l'sharis, it's made to chime on the hour, and it's also al yedei mishkalos, and it operates through the swinging of these weights. Mutter la'archai, you're allowed to set it up, v'lahachinai, and to prepare it, miba'oid yom, before Shabbos begins, on Friday, kedei sheyelech v'yekashkesh kol haShabbos, so that it should operate through Shabbos, and it should chime on the hour. Now let's remember, our Siman over here, Siman Shin Lamed Ches, we're dealing with things that make noise. That's why this comes in over here. So the Machaber is telling you, you're allowed to set this clock in motion on Erev Shabbos so that it should operate throughout Shabbos and it should chime on the hour through Shabbos. Now let's go down to the Mishnah Berurah and see what the potential Isurim over here were. What is it that you might be concerned with that the Machaber is telling you, don't worry, it's mutter? So on the bottom of Kuf Pei Daled Amid Beis, Ois Katan Yud Gimel, the Mishnah Berurah says, Zog hamekashkesh l'shois, Ritzaynoi loymar, it's the intent of the Machaber to say, Moira hasha'os, a clock, Shekayrin zeger, which we call in Yiddish hazeger, Sha'asur la'ashmi'a koil, which is made to make noise, lahidia hashois, to let you know that it's the hour. So it chimes on the hour. On Kuf Pei Hey Amud Aleph, mutter la'archa, you're allowed to set it up. Hainu, the Chavetz Chaim explains, why is the Mechaber going out of his way here to tell you that this is mutter? The loy chayshinan, because we do not have to worry, kishayishbu ukailoi, that when people hear the chimes of your clock, yechashdu sheharichu b'Shabbos, they will suspect that you set this clock in motion on Shabbos. You don't have to worry about that. What? That's what he said. What about the fact that you're making the noise? Oh, so you set it up before Shabbos. Yeah, but you're not using a keli on Shabbos to make noise. You set up a keli before Shabbos to make noise.
We can't use a washing machine before Shabbos that we set the wash out.
So let's separate two things. The thing over here is that he's saying is the loy chayshinon, we do not worry kishayishbu kailoi, that when people hear the noise, yechashdu, they'll suspect sheharicha b'Shabbos, that you set it up on Shabbos. Why? Because everybody knows and everybody understands that these kind of clocks were made to set in motion before Shabbos. So you don't have to worry that people are going to suspect you. Now, this isser, this prohibition of people might think that you did it, this is what we call avsha milsa. Avsha milsa means it's a public thing. It's a noise that's heard by the public. Now, you're not allowed to do something on Shabbos, which is avsha milsa, where people are going to walk by and hear your washing machine. Now, nobody, if your washing machine is running on Shabbos morning, when was it turned on? It wasn't turned on Friday, right? But it's the same problem, because avsha milsa is something that somebody will hear and will right away suspect somebody's doing laundry on Shabbos. That you're not allowed to do, because that's zilzul Shabbos. So but what the Mishnah Berurah says, not that way. The Mishnah Berurah says by the clock, everybody understands that the clock was set yesterday. No one is going to suspect that the clock was set today. Everybody knows that it was set yesterday.
For a washing machine that's running on Shabbos, we're not talking about in the morning. We're talking about when Shabbos started.
Yeah.
People know that you didn't set it up.
So first of all, I don't know. Is it true that your washing machine is not allowed to run right after Shabbos starts? Is that true? Is that also because of Avsha Milsa? I'm not sure if that's also Avsha Milsa. I'm not sure.
If it disturbs the Shabbos, if you're not supposed to.
Running by the Suda. Zilzul Shabbos. Now here's an interesting thing. Reb Ruvain told me he remembers when he was younger, he was still single. Reb David was married, and Reb David was living in Seagate. And it was during the summer, and there was an incredible heat wave. And Reb Ruvain told me it was so hot that he was climbing out of his skin. He was desperate to cool off. And he thought, it would make people laugh, he thought that maybe the stone step on the stoop, maybe it would have a little coolness to it. So he tried to lay down on the stoop, and then he found out what they mean when they talk about brick oven pizzas. It was like laying in an oven. So he told me that they called Rav Moshe on Erev Shabbos and asked Rav Moshe, are they allowed to put on a fan and leave it on for Shabbos? Now this must be in the 50s. And Rav Moshe said, no, it's also because of Avsha Milsa. Nobody's going to believe, this is not now, nowadays he would zicha be matter it. But then he answered it. He said, no one's going to believe that you turned on a fan on Erev Shabbos and you let a fan run all Shabbos. Electricity was very expensive. People were very poor. There's Avsha Milsa. You're not allowed to do it. Nowadays, you are allowed to do it. Nowadays, no shaila, you're allowed to do it.
What was the point of the fan then? Was it temporary for a couple minutes?
No, to turn it on before Shabbos, leave it in the dining room, blowing in the dining room for the whole Shabbos. He said it's also, you're not allowed to do it. People are going to hear the noise of the fan, and they're going to think that you turned it on Shabbos. Av Shemilsa, it's Zilusa de Shabbos. So what's going to be mutter and what's going to be aser because of Av Shemilsa is going to depend on the circumstances and the times and what people are going to think and what they're not going to think. Rav Moshe, one of the reasons why Rav Moshe asered using Shabbos clocks on air conditioners, one of the reasons was Av Shemilsa. Because somebody hears the air conditioner turn on, but it turned on an air conditioner on Shabbos, then Zilusa the Shabbos. So he asked it because of Av Shemilsa. So that was the potential Isser over here. They're going to hear the clock chiming. They're going to think, what, you set up a clock on Shabbos? Says the Mishnah Berurah, the Mechaber says it's mutter because everybody understands that these clocks are made to be set up in advance and then to run for a long time. So they understand you set it up before Shabbos. They're not going to think you set it up on Shabbos. Now let's go into some fascinating Mishnah Berurahs. Mishnah Berurah Ois Cotton. Why did I write down here? I wrote down here 15, footnote 15. Oh, okay. Footnote 15 in the Dirshu here talks about setting an alarm clock. You want to set an alarm clock before Shabbos to wake you up Shabbos morning for davening. So he brings down in the famous tshuva from Rav Moshe Niegris, if you want to set an alarm clock on Erev Shabbos, so that it should ring on Shabbos. If the alarm is going to be heard outside of your room, you have other people sleeping in neighboring bedrooms. Hadavar Aser Misham Av Shemilsa. Rav Moshe asered it in the Igris because of Av Shemilsa. Why? Kevan Chebi Yamaisa Chayil. Since during the week, Regilim Lechavnoi Balaylo Sheyitzalzel Babayker, the traditional use of an alarm clock is you set it at night before you go to sleep to go off the next morning. When somebody will hear the alarm clock ringing Shabbos morning, they're going to think that you set it on Shabbos. That was what Rav Moshe wrote in the Igris. Me'idach, on the other hand, that it's mutter. Now, far be it for me to argue on Rav Moshe. I wouldn't dare. But I'm not coming to argue. I have a suspicion, and my suspicion is as follows. I meant to take out an Igris and look at the date of this tshuva, when this tshuva was written. But I know that this tshuva is a very old tshuva. So was it written in the 60s? Was it written in the 50s or the 60s? I'm not sure. But it's an old tshuva. Now, let's think, for those of us, about all of us, who are old enough to remember, what an alarm clock was, even in the 70s. What was an alarm clock? An alarm clock was a wind-up clock. In order to set the alarm, you turned the dial that moved the needle to the time that you wanted, and then you pushed a button on top for the alarm to be on. Or you pulled it up, actually. You pulled up the button, and now the alarm is on. Now, go over to somebody who's not a Yedei Hilchasa. Go over to somebody who's not a Mishnah Berurah Yid and tell him, you're not allowed to do that. Why on earth not? What am I doing? What did I do? I turned the dial that moved the needle. There's no electricity involved. It's completely mechanical. I didn't wind up the clock. The clock is already running. So I didn't wind up the clock. I took a switch on top and I pulled it up. It's not electrical. It's mechanical. What did I do? What isser did I do? So to set an alarm clock in the 70s, the only isser that it involved is an isser that we're going to talk about now. We're going to say that it's usser. Why? Because of Hashmas Koil. Why is it usser? Because you're setting up a Kli HaMiyuchid LaHashmas Koil. This is like the door knocker. It's a Keli that is Miyuchid, that is specifically for making noise, and you're setting it up to make noise on Shabbos. You're not allowed to make noise on Shabbos with a Keli HaMiyuchid LaHashmas Koil. It's a very specious isser. And why is that, Osir? Gzeri Yeshemi Yisakid Klei Shir. It's an incredibly specious Isser. So, yeah, if somebody hears your alarm clock go off on Shabbos morning in 1973, they're going to think you said it on Friday night. Now let's contrast that to nowadays. What kind of alarm clock do you have? Your iPhone. Or an electric or a clock radio, right? We are completely, the words of the Chazal are bodul minei. We are completely removed from using electronic things on Shabbos. Every little kid knows you're not allowed to use something electric on Shabbos. So there's no way we're going to set an alarm clock on Shabbos, and there's no way if somebody hears your iPhone ringing on Shabbos morning, they think that you set your clock on Friday night. Nobody's going to be choshed that. So I have, this is my own personal, I have a funny feeling that the Rishon Zatzal would not have written this tshuva in 2018. And that this, and to say that you're only allowed to set the alarm if nobody else is going to hear it because of Avsha Milsa, I have a very hard time thinking that Rav Moshe would say that now. Now in the Dirshu here, it brings down, Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is materit. So there definitely are materim. So that's as far as alarm clocks. Now, Ois Cotton Tes Vav in the Mishnah Berurah. Third line down in the Mishnah Berurah. The Mechaber said, you're allowed to set this clock in motion on Erev Shabbos. However, says the Mishnah Berurah, Avo B'Shabbos. How about if you want to set this clock, this grandfather clock, you want to set it in motion on Shabbos. It wasn't going on Erev Shabbos. Now it's Shabbos. You want to, I don't know what you do with grandfather clocks. You start swinging the weight. That's how you start it? Okay, so the clock's not running. Now you want to make it run on Shabbos. Avo b'Shabbos, says the Chavetz Chaim. Certainly, if the clock was not running, and now you want to make it run, that you're certainly not allowed to do. Even by making the pendulum swing. What are you going to do already? All you're going to do is take the weight, pull it, let go, and now you set the clock in motion. That says the Mishnah Berurah, you're sicher not allowed to do that. V'yesh pazeh iser Torah lekama paiskim. That would be an iser daraisa, according to most paiskim. Why?
But let's say there's no music on it, there's no chime.
Still, iser daraisa. Why? To have a b'klal tikkun moneh, because it's makah b'patish. It's tikkun moneh. You have a machine that is not running. Now you go ahead, you take it, you do this, now it's a running machine. Tikkun moneh.
What about the watches that are wandering?
We're going to get to it. We're going to get to it. Ela filu, so says the Mishnah Berurah, if the clock wasn't running, to make it run, according to most poskim, is a daraisa. Ela filu ba'oidei hoilech aser, gam kein limshach hamishkalos. If the clock is running, and you want to make it run longer, I guess the weights are the pendulum is slowing down. So,
The weight, once the weights are finished pulling, keeping, perpetuating the motion, you have to wind the weights so it could continue. That pendulum is all hinged upon the weights that are dropping.
oh, it's weights that drop down? Oh, that's what it is. So in other words, you raise the weight, and then over time the weight lowers.
It drops down.
And that's what keeps the So what you're doing now, thank you so much. Now I understand what he means. Limshay hamishkalos, to raise the weight. And by raising the weight, the clock is going to run longer. So even to do that, betashin ur. What's a tashin ur? A pocket watch. A pocket watch that you have to wind up. Chut hamoshech hagalgalim, to go ahead and wind up the clock, is shelo yifsek yiluchay, so that the clock shouldn't stop. Im lo l'tzarich chayla tzarich lekach, unless you're doing it for the betterment of a sick person who needs to know the time, maybe he needs to know when to take his medication. Then yesh lahater laharichai ba'idei hoilech. You're allowed to do it for a chayla. So if the clock is running, you're allowed to adjust the weight so it should run longer. If the watch is ticking, you can wind it up to make it run longer if you're doing it for a chayla, because it's a drabanan. In Bekaishi Limtzayeni Yehudi Lazeh. If you can't find a guy to do it, because he's still worried that it might be a daraisa. He doesn't want you to do it for a chayla. If it was a darabanan, you could just do it for a chayla. He really doesn't want you to do it for a chayla either. He wants you to find a guy to do it, because he's still worried that it's a daraisa. In the Sharitzian and Ice Yud Tes, he says here that do it with a guy that feel malach daraisa mutter ayidei Yehudi l'tzarech chayla. You're allowed to do a daraisa through a guy for a chayla. He's afraid this might still be a daraisa. V'ayidei Yehudi yesh lahater la'aricha l'tzarech chayla afilu k'shenifsak yiluchay. Vida, and says the Chavetz Chaim, you should know, those clocks, those watches, shekarin tashin ur, the pocket watches, or a regular wristwatch with a wind-up, sherogel l'pa'amim, that it happens sometimes, kisha'imid, I remember this when I was a kid, sometimes your watch would stop, v'nifsak b'hiluchay, huminanoi, if you would shake it, it would go for another few minutes. Huminanoi b'miktas v'chayzil hiluchay, tzarech li zar shalayla nani b'shabbos. You got to make sure not to shake it on Shabbos. So again, to recap what he's saying over here. The Mechaber said the grandfather clock that works with the weights, you could set it up before Shabbos. On Shabbos, forget the fact that it's going to make noise. The fact that it's going to make noise, you're over in Issa D'Rabbanan if you set it up. But if the clock wasn't running and you make the clock run, it's an Issa D'Raisa of Tikkun Mana. Same thing applies to a watch. You have a wind-up watch that stopped. You go, you wind it up. Issa daraisa, tikkun mana. If the clock was running, or the watch was running, and you wind it up, maybe darabanan, maybe daraisa. Now you asked about automatic watches. Now automatic watches, the self-winding that works with your motion. So he brings down here in the Dirshu in footnote 20. Yad a wristwatch that keeps itself going by virtue of your hand shaking back and forth. If the watch is not running, you're not allowed to move it. Because again, it's a makah b'patish. It wasn't running and you're making it run. If it is running, Rosh Hashanah says, you're allowed to move it. Because even if the person has das, that he wants to wind it up by moving his hand, he still wants to say, it's not makah b'patish, because it's the you can't say that the watch is not broken, it's running. It's running. Rosh Hashanah says that would be a real stretch to aser. In other words, we're asering winding up a watch that's not working. We're asering winding up a watch that is working to make it run longer, because you're doing a maisa to go wind it up. But to say that you have an automatic watch that's running, that's going to run longer because you happen to be walking, that Rosh Hashanah is not ready to answer. So Rosh Hashanah is mat to that. And also too, Rabbi Yashiv was also mat to it. Yeah.
Why would that be different than a running watch that you're going to wind further?
So that was bothering me when I saw this. What exactly is the difference? And from Rav Shlomo Zalman, what it sounds to me is that by the watch, you are going ahead and doing a mechanical maisa to go make the watch run longer. With the automatic watch, you're not. You don't intend to do anything. It goes into what we spoke about the other night. Sometimes doing something is not even called a malacha. I don't know if you were here that night. We spoke about, we're used to thinking that there's a davar she'eino miskaven, right? There's something that you're dragging a bench, and you might make a chritz. So we say it's a davar she'eino miskaven. Davar she'eino miskaven is mutter unless it's a psik reisha. There's a psik reisha, it's also. But there's a madrega that's even less than a davar she'eino miskaven, which is, I'll give you the example I gave then. You're not allowed to expose a plant to sunlight on Shabbos. Okay, so you put down your foot, you cover the grass. You pick up your foot, you uncover the grass. It's a malacha. The answer is walking is not a malacha. It's not a malacha. You can't call it a malacha. So I have a funny feeling that Rosh Shlomo Zalman is trying to say the same thing over here. To tell me that it's usher for me to have the watch on my wrist while I walk, because it's going to make the watch run longer, that's a leap. That's a very big leap. To say that you took a broken watch, meaning a watch that was not running, you put on a watch that was not running, and now by virtue of your walking, you're going to make it run, now already you're dealing with a chash of a daraisa. Now you're dealing with makah b'patish. That they don't want to be matir. But the watch is running. It's working. So what, it's going to run longer because you happen to be walking? That leap, it looks like they don't want to make. Okay. So that was Ice Cotton Tesvav. It's fascinating stuff. Okay. Let's go to Sif Daled, the Mechaber. Boy, it's late. Okay. Well, now we have some easy stuff here. We're on Kuf Pei Hey Amud Aleph. We're just starting Sif Daled. HaMeshamer Peiroisav Uzrav Mipnei Chaya Va'oif. Somebody who is guarding his produce and his plantings from wild animals and birds. Lo Yispai Kaf El Kaf. He's not allowed to clap to scare away the birds. V'lo Yitpach Kapav Al Yerechai. He's not allowed to smack his hands on his thighs. V'lo Yeraked Lahavricham. He can't stamp his feet to go chase away the animals. Now, why is this usher? Nothing to do with Hashmas Koil. This would not be a problem of Hashmas Koil. This is not Derek Shira v'Simcha, and you're not using a keli. You're not using a kliyam yuchid l'shir. So why is this usher? Gzeira shemayitel tzror v'yizrak lehem. What we're afraid of is you might get frustrated that the birds don't want to leave, and you're going to grab a rock, and you're going to throw a rock at the bird, and you'll throw a rock from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. So that's why we answer you from getting involved in chasing away the animals. Now let's see what the Mishnah Berurah has to say about this. Ice cotton tezayin v'lo yiraked. What does that mean? Not to dance. Baregel means not to stamp with your feet. La shmiya koil, to make noise. Lahavis ha'oifos, to scare the birds. The problem is we're afraid you might throw a stone. Ice cotton yudzayin. V'yizrak lahem l'rishos harabim. You might throw a rock from where you're standing in Rishos HaYachid out to the Rishos HaRabim. Now, according to the multitude of Paiskim who hold that nowadays we don't really have Rishos HaRabim Daraisa, Efsher Deshari B'cholzeh, says Chavetz Chaim, it could be that all of this is mutter, to Gzera L'Gzerahi, because now already we're making a Gzera L'Gzera. What are we saying? We're saying, we don't want you to go stamp on the ground to scare away the bird, because you might pick a rock and throw a stone from your Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim D'Rabbanan, which is usher, because you might come to throw a stone from a Rishus HaYachid to a Rishus HaRabim D'Raisa. That's too far. We're not going to make such Gzera. V'chol sheked l'sapek kaf al kach klach hayad. Certainly to clap klach hayad, right? Clap on the back of your hand. Bevadai shari l'kul yama. That's certainly mutter. Ve'en lach Hashem yitel tzrar. We don't have to worry that you're going to go pick up a rock and throw it. Me'achar sheyesh leheker she'en mesapek lehedya. Just by virtue of the fact that you're making sure to do your clapping in a strange way, you're doing klach hayad, that alone will remind you that it's Shabbos and you can't pick up a rock and throw it. Okay, next sif.
What about if you're not guarding your food or your grains or anything like that? Just, you're outside, a bunch of birds, and you want to go get the birds away.
So it's an interesting question that you're asking. I was wondering, I can't tell you for certain, but from the fact that the Mechaber put this in the context of chasing away the birds from something that's valuable to you, that's where you're going to get very involved, and you're going to get emotionally involved and forget that it's Shabbos and maybe come to throw a stone. But just because there happen to be some birds in your backyard and you get a kick out of watching them take off and fly away, or you're amusing your kid, I don't think you're going to come to pick up a stone and throw a stone. That would be my thought. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. They lived in small cramped, it's the Jewish quarter. That's for sure, yeah. Yeah. What? Well, whistling, we said already is mutter. Whistling is mutter on Shabbos. Okay, Sif Hey. This is a halacha that I was told when I was a child, and the person who told it to me didn't know what he was talking about. He told me something was aser, and it's not. I always remember that. In any case, what? Sif Cotton Hey. Ein seichekim be'egoizim. You're not allowed to play with nuts, v'loy b'tapuchim, or apples, v'kiyotze behen, or similar things to these, mishum ashvuye gumais, because you might come to fill up holes. Now let's see what this is talking about. So the Mishnah Berurah is cutting Yud Ches, ein seichekin. What does this mean? What kind of playing? Shemagalgalin oisan, where you're going to roll the nuts. So this is what we call marbles. You're not allowed to play a game where you're going to roll the nuts, or roll the apples, or roll the marbles. Umakin zuazu, you make one marble hit the other marble and knock it out of the circle or whatever. Kederech shemasakikin and the oris, the way the young girls play. Why is this aser? Ashvuye gumais, because you might come to level out the ground. Sheyachin derech legalgal egois, because if the ground is bumpy lumpy, you can't play the game. So you might come to level out the ground to be able to play the game. However, let's continue. Let's go back up to the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Ramah, Haga, Fedafka al gabe karka. This is only aser on the ground. Aval al gabe shulchan, but to play on a table, shari is mutter. Because over there is no gzera of ashvuye gumais. Mutter lischayk. Well, you know what? Before we go weiter, let's go back down to the Mishnah Berurah. Eis Katan Chaf al gabe shulchan. You're allowed to play this on a table. V'hu adin al gabe machzeles. Or if you want to play on the ground on a mat, you lay down a mat, a beggar, or on a garment, a tavla, or on a board. And we don't make a gzera that you're not allowed to play on top of a mat because you might come to play on the ground itself. The gzera l'gzera, because that's a gzera l'gzera. We're making a gzera, don't play on the mat because you might come to play on the ground, and that's also because of ashvuye gumais. That we're not going to say. But, however, says the Chavetz Chaim, aval al gabe karka, but to play on the ground, afilu hi merutzefes, even if the ground that you're playing on is tiled over, deloi shayach ashvuye gumais, where you would say there is no gzera of ashvuye gumais, gam kein aser, that's aser, the karka bekarka michlaf, because that's what's called a gzera that's koroiv, even though that also seems to be a gzera l'gzera. I'm making a gzera of paved ground, to bare ground, to ashvuye gumais. So it's a gzera l'gzera, but that's called a gzera that's karev. It's very easy to get mixed up over there. Now, I don't have time to read it here inside in the dirshu, but the poskim make a very clear distinction. The poskim say, to play outside on a paved courtyard, over there what the Mishnah Berurah is saying comes into play. We're not going to let you play in a paved courtyard, because if you're playing outside on pavement, you might come to play outside on dirt. But you want to play on the floor, in the house, in the kitchen, that's mutter. Because you're not going to come to make a mistake. I played on the kitchen, on the tiled kitchen floor in the house. I'm going to come to play on bare ground outside in the dirt. So to play marbles in the house, on the floor, according to the place we say, is mutter. Continues the Ramah. Umutter lischayk ba'atzamais shekayrin chich. You're allowed to play with little bones that they used to play with, that they call chich. Now the question is exactly what this is. It could be dice, it could be kugelach, it could be a game that uses pieces like chess or checkers. Do you know, I think, what shachmat is? Shachmat. I know, it sounds like it, right? So I would think that shachmat is chess.
Here it says chess.
It says chess there? Yeah. But shachmat, I think, is chess. But you're allowed to play these kind of games. Afal pi shamashmiim koil. Even though banging the kugelach together, banging the dice together, banging the game pieces makes noise, it's mutter. Of course it's mutter. It's not, you're not making noise derech shira v'simcha. It's not a problem. Says the Mishnah Berurah in Ois Katan Chafalov. Ba'atzamais, the Noigen la'asai such a kesef, they used to make these game pieces out of silver. Sheyiu miyuchadun l'Shabbos, special for Shabbos. Dem loikein mechzik uvda d'chayil, because they were worried, otherwise it looks like uvda d'chayil. Umaharas sasayin chaylik, he argues on this din. Usfir lei, get a load of this. Get a load of this. Kevan she'ein tayeles b'yedias chachma haschaykahu. Since you're not gaining any chachma from playing these games, v'uadin kol minei schayk, any game playing, aser, not allowed to play games on Shabbos. V'af b'chayil yizaher, and during the week you should be careful from playing games. Misham Moshev leitzim, he's sitting around playing games. We make a siyum and we say, Shasanta Chalkeinu Miyoshev Beis Medrash. We thank the Rebbeinu Shalom. You made our portion from those who learn Torah in the Beis Medrash. V'loi Miyoshvei Kranais, not for people who sit around. So to play games, Moshev leitzim. U'Moshe Kasav V'Sibit Shin Zayin Siv Tez Zayin. V'Hayim Abriki Yosef Shev Yayid B'Shem Kabel Gedolim. Sheikh Mira Bozeh. We'll continue with this tomorrow. It's late, so we'll have to finish this tomorrow. But it's good to hear such a thing, even to remember, just to remember that there is such a concept, that you don't play games. Forget Shabbos during the week. Freilich Chanukah, everyone.